Hello, it's Vernon at Improve My World. I've been asked several times, and it's a really good question, which is, what do you mean by ego? And, how does that relate to toxicity? What is ego anyway? Well, it's a good question because there are different interpretations. I mean, Freud, for example, saw ego as a sort of reality check between the impulsive id and the strict moral superego. So in his description, ego is a sort of mediator. Well, our definition is much closer to, in fact, it is the definition that the Hindu faith would follow, or Buddhism, which is that ego is the false sense of self. It's the illusion we create about who we think we are. Right? The problem is that we create these illusions, and when we start to believe them, and we start to act that way. So if we say, "Well, I'm a very important person," we start to act that way, and we get arrogant, and we get difficult, and we expect to be entitled to this, that, and the other. So ego is the source of toxicity because it encourages us to think that this illusion, which is a delusion, but this illusion we're creating, right, which is completely false. It's an image we've got in our mind. It means meaningless, right? However, we believe it and we act on it. And because ego is a form of separation, right? If I'm like this, just a fly. If I'm like this, then I'm different from other people, right? The separation is a cause of conflict. It's fragmentation of the self. We're not whole when we're like that. So it's important to control ego, to be aware of ego. So ego and awareness are almost opposites, because as soon as you become aware of the ego disappears, right? I'm aware that I'm acting this way, right? Which is completely false. So let's just stop it, right? Let's just stop it. Now it can be a stimulus. So if you say to yourself, well, I want to be a great teacher, or I want to be a great dad, and that stimulates you to say, well, what is a great teacher? How does a great teacher behave? What is a great dad? How does he behave? Then ego is actually challenging, and in that sense it's positive. But if you then believe the story it's telling you, you're making a terrible mistake. So ego is the source of creativity, and the key to dealing with ego is to be aware of what's happening in your mind. And then you can choose whether you want to follow this illusion, or whether you want to create another, or whether you just say, no, that's not me. Have a lovely day.